Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Banik Live. Today we'll discuss one important international institution, which is very important in the present geopolitical situation of the world. So they are the Nuclear Supplier Group, popularly known as the NSG, Nuclear Supplier Group. Fine. So you all know that the issue of nuclear weapon. Okay. Came to the center stage in the post Second World War period. Fine. So nuclear supplier group became very important after that. No, because Second World War came to an end with the use of the nuclear weapons. Fine. Try to understand it. The World War II. It ended with the use of nuclear weapons. So, since the end of Second World War, the world is much concerned about nuclear weapons. Much concerned. How to ensure that more and more countries who are in rat race for nuclear weapons, they are controlled because the nuclear technology is a dual use technology. Dual use technology. That means it can be used for civilian purpose. It can be used for war or for destruction. If the nuclear technology and nuclear material fall in wrong hand, it will create havoc. That's why so there is a discussion for creating a group which will have some control over the nuclear technology, nuclear material, etc. in the global scenario. Fine. So then coming to this nuclear supplier group or the NSG, as it is called as nuclear supplier group, is a group of nuclear supplier countries that seek to contribute to the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons through implementation of two sets of guidelines for nuclear exports and nuclear related exports. For what? So it will guide on nuclear export and nuclear related export. Fine. So its first meeting was held in London. So it's otherwise known as the London Club. This group, so this NSG is popularly known as the London Group or the London Club, because the first meeting of this group in 1975 was held at London. So it is called as the London Club. So what this is? So this nuclear supplier group is a group of countries who have nuclear technology, nuclear material and expertise. Fine. So you can say they have a monopoly in nuclear commerce or nuclear trade. Fine. So these countries, some countries have the nuclear technology, some countries have the nuclear materials, so which can be given to other countries in their to fulfill the requirement of energy, not of weapons. Remember the difference. It will help the countries, okay, by supplying materials for their nuclear energy program, but it will not support the country in their nuclear weaponization program. And as the technology and material are of dual use, so NSG monitor it. So that's why a country to get supply of materials or technology must be a member of NSG. So it can get an uninterrupted supply of the materials or the technology from the nuclear supplier group. So moving further into the detail, membership of criteria. Factors taken into account for membership includes the following. So how a country can become a new member of the nuclear supplier group? How it can be? So ability to supply items including items in transit covered by annexure to part 1 and 2 of the energy guidelines. Adherence to guidelines and action in accordance with them. Enforcement of a legally based domestic export control system which gives effect to the commitment to act in accordance with the guidelines. Full compliance with the obligations of one or more of the following: the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the Treaty of Paliandaba, okay, Rarotonga, okay, Bangkok, or an equivalent international nuclear proliferation agreements. Okay, that means the country to be a member must adhere to the NPT. What? Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. This treaty was signed to ensure not to or to check the spread or proliferation of nuclear weapons. Fine. So the global community signed nuclear proliferation treaty. Okay. So thereby it ensures that the nuclear weapon technology is not being proliferated or spread to non-nuclear weapon countries. Okay. So this NSG also ensure that the member states must be signatories to NPT. Okay, that the condition for a nuclear non-proliferated world, so that may lead to the check on the proliferation or spread of nuclear weapons. Okay, so I hope that you know about this NPT, but I am giving a brief on that. Okay, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Okay, so it was signed in 1968 and came into force okay from 1970. Okay, it checked the spread of nuclear weapon technology. Okay. So NPT means the Treaty of Nuclear Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons is the centerpiece of the global efforts to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and to promote cooperation peaceful use of nuclear energy. Two things NPT ensures: spread of check the spread of nuclear weapons and help in harnessing nuclear technology for peaceful use. So 68 the treaty was signed, came into force in 1970. Fine. Coming to NSG, so compliance to NPT is one of the conditions to be a member. Fine. Moving further, support of international efforts towards non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and of their delivery vehicles. Fine. That means it is not only for the nuclear non-proliferation, even this NPT also aims at providing support to the efforts towards non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and of their delivery vehicles, because the nuclear weapons are to be delivered, and for that delivery vehicles like the rockets need to be developed, because no more the bombs are being carried through the aeroplanes, right, in the age of missiles. So country develop long range missiles, okay, for delivering nuclear weapons. So even the nuclear weapon delivery is also coming under the control of the NSG. Fine. It also look to that aspect of nuclear proliferation of weapons and their delivery system. Fine. Then what is the goal of this? NSG member pursue the aim of the NSG through adherence to NSG guidelines that are adopted by consensus. Most important thing. NSG guidelines are adopted by consensus, not by majority principle. The order is by consensus. So consensus among all the member states, not majority principle, but consensus among members. Consensus among members. And through an exchange of information, notably on development of nuclear proliferation concern. The first set of energy guidelines govern the export of items that are especially designed or prepared for nuclear use. So what are the materials that are under scrutiny of the NPT and the scrutiny of the NSG? Let's check. First is nuclear material, fissile materials, or open grade materials, or energy grade materials. Nuclear reactor and their equipment, therefore, because nuclear reactor is used for power generation as well as for enrichment facility. Non-nuclear material for the reactor, because nuclear reactor also needs some non-nuclear materials for operation of the nuclear reactor. Reactor is the device in which a controlled chain reaction took place. What is a nuclear reactor? Nuclear reactor is a device in which controlled chain reaction took place. So, this non-nuclear material for the reactors, fine. Then plant and equipment for the reprocessing, enrichment and conversion of nuclear materials and for fuel fabrications and heavy water production. A nuclear power plant need the nuclear fuel that to be enriched, nuclear fuels to be used in the reactor, fine, and that also need the fabrication of the heavy water used as moderator and coolants in nuclear power plants, fine, okay. It also must have the enrichment facility, because nuclear fuel to be used in the reactor have to be enriched to make them suitable for use in the nuclear reactor, fine. So these are Then technologies associated with each of these above items. The second set of energy guidelines govern the export of nuclear related dual use items and technology. Items that are both nuclear and non-nuclear applications or applications in civilian purpose as well as for the defense purpose, which would make a significant contribution to an unsafeguarded nuclear fuel cycle or nuclear explosive activity. Fine. So the second set of energy guidelines govern the export of nuclear related dual use items. So it related to this is the most important because energy members, so they export nuclear related dual use materials. Fine. Energy guidelines are consistent with and complement the various international legally binding implications in the field of nuclear non-proliferation. This includes NPT. Okay. Okay. So in the Treaty of Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the Latin America, Pacific Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty, okay, African Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty, African Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty, okay, the Treaty of South Asian Nuclear Weapon Free Zone that was signed in Bangkok. So after NPT, so many other treaties were signed in specific domain. Post NPT, okay. So like in Latin America, they have a separate treaty. In the South Pacific, they have a separate treaty. Fine. In the Africa, they have a separate treaty. In Southeast Asia, they have a separate treaty. But the genesis or the broad outline was the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or NPT. So NSG complied to the NPT and the NPT related provisions in other treaties or the supplementary treaties to the nuclear proliferation treaty signed by different regions or by different regional groupings. The NSC guidelines aim to ensure that nuclear trade for peaceful purpose does not contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices, while not hindering international trade and cooperation in the nuclear field. This is ensured by NSG. Although NSG aims to check the spread of nuclear weapon technology, but the use of nuclear technology for civilian purpose is encouraged. Fine. Through the nuclear supplier group. That's the purpose for which it is created. So, hindering international trade and cooperation in the nuclear field. The energy guidelines facilitate the development of peaceful nuclear treaty by providing the means whereby obligations to facilitate peaceful nuclear cooperation can be implemented in a manner consistent with peaceful nuclear weapons can be implemented in a manner consistent with the international nuclear non-proliferation norms. Energy members commit themselves to conditions of supply in the context of the further development of the applications of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. The members ensure that there is no such violation, okay, where the nuclear non-proliferation treaty is somehow the other compromised. Fine. So although NSG is a different body than the NPT, but the NPT being the main guidelines for the check of nuclear proliferation, So the NSG guidelines also conform to the NPT guidelines. Fine. Then come to the safeguards. What are the safeguards under this treaty? NSG aims to ensure that nuclear exports are carried out with appropriate safeguards, physical protection and non-proliferation conditions and other appropriate restrictions. NSG also seeks to restrict the export of sensitive items that can contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Okay, so reading it again, NSG aims to ensure that nuclear exports are carried out. That means export are to be carried out. There is no restrictions on export. Export will continue. Nuclear export will continue with appropriate safeguards. With appropriate safeguards. So physical protection and non-proliferation conditions and other appropriate restrictions or restraints. NSG also seek to restrict the export of sensitive items that can contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Fine. So the whole principal objective of NSG is use of nuclear technology and material for peaceful purpose. Simultaneously restricting the same for weaponization. Fine. This is what. And NSG also seeks to restrict the export of sensitive items that can contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Not only nuclear materials, but other sensitive items which can contribute to proliferation of nuclear weapons, like the missile technology, rocket technology, supercomputers, etc., which can be used by the countries for proliferating nuclear weapons. At the beginning of 1990s, it became apparent that export control provisions then in force had not prevented Iraq, a party to NPT, from pursuing a clandestine nuclear weapon program. Clandestine means secret, which later promoted UN Security Council action. A large part of Iraq's effort has been to acquire dual-use items not covered by the guidelines and then to build material within Iraq needed for a nuclear weapon. Fine. So they acquired the materials in the guise of using them in the civilian field, but practically they used them in the nuclear weapon program. Iraq under Saddam Hussein, because the loopholes in the nuclear non-proliferation treaty was misused, or the advantage of the loopholes in the programs were capitalized by the Iraqi government under its dictator Saddam Hussein. So when that was known, so the world became more concerned, because the dual-use technology imported from outside for civilian purpose are being utilized for developing nuclear weapons or converting the civilian nuclear purpose or the materials which are acquired for the civilian purpose in the defense need of the country. So that is not the objective, but it is being misused. It is misused, so it is to be ensured that no such misuse is taking place. After the Iraqi development, this became the concern of the global community. Fine. Then Moving further, following the development, okay, okay. In doing so, NSG demonstrated its commitment to nuclear non-proliferation by ensuring that items like those used by Iraq could only be used for peaceful purposes. These items could remain available for peaceful nuclear activity subject to IAEA safeguard. What is IAEA? We came across one more institution called the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So IAEA acts as the watchdog of the world regarding nuclear weaponization. Fine. So this directly functions under the UNSC Security Council. Fine. Okay. Following the development, NSG decided in 1992 to establish guidelines for transfer of nuclear-related dual-use equipments, materials, and technology, which could make a significant contribution to an unsafeguarded nuclear fuel cycle or nuclear explosive activity. Fine. Okay. NSG are formed with the objective of averting proliferation of nuclear weapons and preventing acts of nuclear terrorism. Okay. So, it was formed for this purpose, averting nuclear proliferation and nuclear weapons and preventing acts of nuclear terrorism. Okay. So, then coming to compare between NPT and NSG. The current guidelines of NSG state that non-NPT states cannot become a member of NSG, which keeps India out of the group. In 1998, India conducted second nuclear test called Operation Shakti. So that way we violated the NPT conditions, and we violated because we are not a signatory to NPT. We justified it that India is not a signatory to NPT, so India will not be abided by the NPT provisions as it is not a signatory. So no violation of the principle because as India is not at all a signatory to NPT, there is no need on part of India to be abided by it. It was the justification issued by India because India is not a member of or a signatory to the NPT. So it is not a compulsion on India to abide by the NPT conditions. So India categorically told this to the international community because I am not a signatory, so it is not a compulsion on me to be abide by the provisions of NPT. So India conducted the second nuclear test in 1998 and conducted the first nuclear test in 1974. One under Mrs. Gandhi as Prime Minister and the second under Atal Bihari Vajpayee as the Prime Minister. Fine. And after the second test, although India came with its own nuclear doctrine, but it has no way improved India's position internationally. Many countries, those who are against India internationally, they put pressure on India because India is not a signatory to the two most important nuclear treaties of the world, that is NPT and CTBT. India being non-signatory to these two, so it is not a compulsion on India. Class चल like class. 15 मिनट 15
ସେଟା କାଲି ଆସିବି ସେ ଗୋଟେ କମ୍ପାନୀ ଥିଲା କାଲି ଜିଏସସି ଯୋଉ ପେପର ଆର୍ଥର ଜିଏସ ପେପର 1 ଜିଏସ ଥିଲା ଜେନେରାଲ ଷ୍ଟଡିଜ ର 1 ଟା ସେଟା ଜେନେରାଲ ଷ୍ଟଡିଜ ର ଖାଲି କରେଣ୍ଟ ଆଫେୟାର୍ସ ପକେଇଥିଲେ କାଲି ଯୋଉ ପରୀକ୍ଷା ହେଲା ଫେର ସେଇ ରିପିଟ ସେଇ କରେଣ୍ଟ ଆଫେୟାର୍ସ
ट्रेडिशनल जिके बहुत थिला
ନା ସେ ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ ନଥିଲା ଜମା ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଦେଖିବେ
okay. So then the second one is MT shear, missile technology control regime, the second condition. So in the pre-2000 period, NSG denied fuel for the Tarapur atomic power stations, while the US used MT shear provisions to prevent the transfer of cryogenic engine technology to from Russia to India. India finally managed to have some relief when US relented and agreed for a civilian nuclear agreement in 2008. This agreement has been done in view of the requirement of the USA under Section 123 of its Atomic Energy Act of 1954, hence known as the 123 agreement. Under this, India signed a civil military separation plan and the India IAS safeguard agreement. In return, US diplomacy helped us to get NSG waivers, and India is able to get the nuclear materials from the world without being a member of the NSG, because with active American support. So the American allies in the nuclear supplier group tried to, or they tried their best to provide the materials or nuclear materials to India. That is a big issue, and that ultimately achieve our purpose. Our purpose, okay, was fulfilled. But to conclude the discussion today, what is the biggest challenge before India? Amidst India's effort to be an NSG member, some countries are opposing Indian membership. Why? India's NSG membership is being opposed. First is, India is not a signatory to NPT. India has conducted nuclear tests. Okay. So these two are the major irritations in India joining the NSG. But India has been trying its best, both bilaterally and at the multilateral forum, to join NSG. So it can carry on its nuclear energy program. Okay, in a hassle-free manner. How this will be possible? Because it will get plenty of materials for its requirement. It will get the advanced nuclear reactor technology. This will help India in its environmental commitment as well as to fulfill its energy crisis. So India has been tirelessly trying to be a member of the nuclear supplier group, and we are much optimistic that in recent future, so very soon India will be joined as a member of the nuclear supplier group. Thank you friends for joining this discussion. So we'll discuss some more such topics in the coming classes. So be in touch to get more information on important bonding topics. Thank you.